In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be reviewing the match against Atalanta. We'll be reviewing the Champions League game against Real Madrid. We'll be interviewing play-by-play commentator from ESPN, Mark Donaldson, this week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com. Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host, Nima, Tavallaey, wishing you back to a week where we, as Inter fans, wish we'd started in a better position than we were last week. But before we get to all of that, let me introduce my panelists. Starting with the SempreInter preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassar, who he's known across on this podcast and across the Inter world as Mystic Mo and Mr. Positivity. So I think Inter are trying to prove to him, are really testing him to see if he is positive. So, really making you earn that title. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think all in all, Real Madrid aside, it's been a good couple of days.
Okay,
we'll get into that later.
Yes, we definitely will. And we're also joined by our good friend from London, Mr. Will Beckman. How are you?
Locked down, but reasonably content with everything in life apart from the football team that I follow. But I'm good, thank you.
Well, that's great. And we're also joined for the first time this season, a very good friend of ours from Canada. He's an associate producer and TSN tennis contributor on TSN Tennis and TSN Sports. He's also our resident go-to guy when it comes to refereeing issues in football. Welcome, Mr. Michael Gallo.
Hello, everyone. Hello from Canada. Beautiful day in Canada, 21 degrees and sunny. All
right.
Not usual November weather, but happy to be back with you guys and excited for another podcast.
Good to have you. And we're also joined by the ESPN play-by-play commentator. We had his partner on, Matteo Bonetti, a couple of weeks ago, so we're very proud to welcome Mr. Mark Donaldson.
Playing second fiddle. How are you?
I'm good. We had Matteo on as a preview for the Milan derby, and you guys do an excellent job together. So we thought we should bring the second person in that dynamic duo. Let's get into it then. You guys obviously commentate a lot of Serie A, you commentate a lot of football. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about what your thoughts are on Inter going into this season and what you've seen from them, and given that Antonio Conte, this was the season that Antonio Conte and Inter were really going to challenge Juventus for the Scudetto. Well, that hasn't really happened. Before we get to whether or not you think that they might go all the way, what were you expecting going into this season? And have Inter disappointed you, or are they just about where you thought they were going to be?
It all depends what you do with statistics, because you can look and say they've only lost 1 of 7, or you can look at them and say they've only won 3 of 7. I'm a kind of glass half full, which is an anti-stereotype of my nation, Scotland, but I've left there now, so I can be positive again. They're weird Inter right now, because prior to the start of the season, I kind of had them as the anti-Juve. I had them as the main challengers, and now we have Milan and Sassuolo as the top 2. I wouldn't be pushing the panic button just yet if I was an Inter fan, but I'd like, if I was, to turn these draws into wins.
For sure. Well, I'm going to hand you over to Mo. Did you have a question for Mark?
Yeah, Mark. So thanks for coming on. I wanted to ask you generally. I mean, it's always nice to have somebody with a broad European football perspective. It's been a bit mad across most leagues. Do you think that we can get some normalcy after the winter break? Is this just going to be an anomalous season where everything's up in the air, in your opinion? Like, how do you see this season panning out, barring any major lockdowns and suspensions?
Well, we're speaking on the day where supposedly a vaccine that cures 90% of COVID cases may soon become available. And the reason I bring that up is because I think if the season is to continue the way it is right now with no fans in attendance, that means that things are going to be different. I think the best chance for teams that aren't normally title contenders or who are but can't get it done is this season. Because you get some weird results. Look at the Premier League in England, look at Serie A in Italy. And I think if we go the whole season whereby there are no fans and there are issues and some teams do suffer. I mean, I did the Lazio against Juve game yesterday morning, and obviously Lazio struggling with COVID, no Ciro Immobile and Thomas Strakosha and Lucas Leiva. So again, it's a bit of a toss of a coin as to what is going to happen. You need a bit of good fortune as well. So I think if there's going to be one season that there's going to be one or two surprises, whether it's league winners or teams challenging. And by the way, I don't think Sassuolo up there is a surprise. Anyone who watched them last season under Roberto Di Zerbi will know how good they are to watch. Can they go and finish in the top four? I don't think so, but I think they'll be challenging for that. But I think you're going to get more stories like that, more Sassuolos. From an Inter podcast perspective, I don't know is the answer, simply because what we've seen so far has been good, it's been bad, and it's been ugly at times. When it's been good, at times it's been very good. In the Derby della Madonnina against Milan, it wasn't very good. The second half was a lot better. But Inter's problem, they haven't lost too many games, but it's consistently inconsistent when it comes to picking up all 3 points. Again, going back to statistics, you look at the last 5 games and you say, Inter have only lost one of the last 5, which is true. You look at the last 5 and you go, well, Inter have only won one of the last 5, which is also true. But 3 draws. I would say, though, that the schedule does kind of ease up a little bit. A trip to Sassuolo won't be easy, but games against Torino and Bologna and Cagliari before that game against Napoli, these are the games that they have to take all 3 points. And if they do, I think going into the Christmas period, if Inter are within touching distance of the teams at the top of the table, I think that sets it up nicely for when the league season resumes in Italy on the 2nd of January.
That's exactly what I want to hear, man.
Yeah, you just gave Mr. Positivity like I don't know how much fuel to keep banging the positivity drum, because I am not convinced. For me, as I've been saying on this podcast and on Twitter, I think there are structural issues at Inter that were masked last season by the individual brilliance and good form of De Vrij, Lukaku, Lautaro, etc. And that when you don't have them, it was like they were the Snoopy Band-Aids on the big gunshot wound. And with Arturo Vidal and Alexander Kolarov, those, to continue with that analogy, a couple of more gunshots have come in instead of more Band-Aids. So I see structural issues. I mean, but seriously speaking, do you see any? Do you not agree? Do you agree or disagree that there are structural issues with the fact that Inter seem to concede all attacks down the middle? It's as if Inter are hollow down the middle.
And they shouldn't really be, because I like Barella, and Brozovic I think is an excellent player, and Arturo Vidal, you never really know what you're getting at his best. He's excellent, but I mean, this is when you kind of look and you go, if a team's relying on Ashley Young, then can they win a Scudetto? No, nothing against Ashley Young. He's kind of in his he's nearly at his mid-30s just now, and he's fine. He's okay. You could look at the other way. Or if a team's relying on a 39-year-old Zlatan Ibrahimovic, then there's a problem here. No, I mean, I think what we have now, and whether it's social media, whether it's podcasts or whatever, there's just a glut of information available for everyone. You can peruse that, you can take as much on board as you want, and you can suit it to yourself. Now, I'm not coming on here and being the ever positive guy about Inter, because right now, would I think they're going to win the Scudetto? No, I think it'll be elsewhere. If you give me the field or Inter, I'm not taking Inter right now. But you can't really make a kind of full look back until everyone's at least played each other once. Because when we did the Derby della Madonnina, and we looked at Milan's games that they've played so far, Bologna, Crotone, and Spezia were their first 3. It's about the luck of the fixtures as well, because they were expected to win all 3, But because they did, they went into the derby with momentum, and they got that good win, and they're still unbeaten. But they were at fault a couple of times, not just the referees, against Roma defensively and against Hellas Verona as well. And you look back at the Inter results so far, and they've had some tough games. I mean, away at Lazio is not easy. Away at Atalanta, that could end up being a good point. But the home game against Parma have not been good this season. And that wasn't good enough for Inter. To be 2-0 down was a shock to everyone else. You guys watch them week in, week out. You pick holes in every single thing that's happened. You're the true fans, so you know. We're just the guys that, if we commentate on them, we see them for 90 minutes, then we watch their games as well. I think there are issues. I think they could be better. With Lautaro and Romelu Lukaku as the front two, I think it's a bit of an issue. The same at Liverpool. If they lose one of those two, I think their title chances are done. So do they have the strength and depth, the squad? Do they have enough in the middle of the park that if someone goes down, they can bring someone else in? Maybe is the answer, but I'm still not convinced.
I'm going to hand you over to Mike.
Hello there, Mark. Before I get to my serious question, I have another question for you. What's more likely to happen this year? Is it Inter to win the Scudetto or Hearts to win championship in Scotland?
How many points by? The second one, not the first one. No, I'll be taking Hearts winning the championship. If you'd said Hearts winning the Scottish Cup in the final against Celtic next month, or Inter winning the Scudetto, that would be probably about even. I.e., I don't think either is going to happen. But no, that's my team, and we did play Inter back in the '60s in the Fairs Cup. More recently, I think the last time we played Italian opposition was Bologna, and it's kind of fitting that we played them in 1990-91. It's kind of fitting now that we've sold one of our best players, Aaron Hickey, the left back, to Bologna. So there are some Hearts. Of course, we had Pasquale Bruno, who was just nuts, and he was wonderful to watch when he was at Hearts. And the one who it's a really sad story. We had a wonderful midfielder who won the cup with us in 1998. Called Stefano Salvatore, and unfortunately Stefano is no longer with us, having died a few years ago. So it's a bit bittersweet, but there's a nice Italian influence over the years at Hearts.
I love it. Anyways, my question for you is, look, Christian Eriksen. I'm confused. I'm just
makes two of us.
Makes three of us if we can count him, because he looks confused on the pitch as well.
I was so excited when we brought in Christian Eriksen last year. Like, really excited. A guy I've liked for a long time, and I've been patiently waiting for him to start making a good impact on our team, and he's yet to do it. I'm not saying he's not been a good player for Inter. I'm just waiting for him to be used in the right way by Conte. I don't know what's going on. I'm guessing it's something behind the scenes that we don't know about, whether it's in training or he's not working hard enough. I don't know. I just, he didn't even play the last two games, and two very important games, Champions League against Real Madrid and to Atalanta. I would expect Eriksen to be playing in this game, and I know there may be some kind of difference of playing Barella at the same time. I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with Eriksen? Do you think that are we regretting this move from Tottenham? I am not yet. I want to see more of him. What do you think about Eriksen at Inter right now?
I commentated on Christian Eriksen when he was a youngster coming through the ranks at Ajax, and we did 4 years of the Eredivisie with him at Ajax, and it was no surprise when he got his move to Spurs. And he kind of hit the ground running, had a good first season at Spurs, but then he was 10, 6, 8, 10, and 8 goals over the next 5 seasons. Season 2019-20, his mind was elsewhere. He wanted to get a move. That move, Barcelona was mentioned. I think he had his heart set on that, and he didn't get that move. Now he's ended up at Inter, massive club. For me, Christian Eriksen is a luxury player, but a luxury player that can help you win things. Because he looks like he's got so much ability, but he looks like a player that you've just got to be careful with as far as how you treat him. kid gloves, perhaps, because we've all seen the best of Christian Eriksen, whether it was at Ajax, whether it was at Spurs. We haven't yet seen the best of Christian Eriksen at Inter. Now, you need him playing at his best. If you've got Eriksen and his deliveries for Lukaku or for Lautaro, and you've got Hakimi on one side down the flank, putting deliveries in as well, that is mouth-watering. It really is. So it's a piece of the jigsaw. I'm content, if I'm an Inter fan, to hold on to right now. But I don't know if you'll ever find out what the reason is. If he's still in the huff from not getting his move. He got his big move. He was at a big club, but he got a move to a massive club like Inter. And can you imagine the adulation of the Inter supporters if you were to win a Scudetto, given how long it's been since Jose Mourinho won the title in 2010? It would be, well, now a decade, more than a decade since you won it. So to get inside his head, he's only 28. He's in the prime of his career. And if you could somehow get inside his head and say, look, I know the Spurs fans loved you. I know it didn't quite end the way you wanted it to be. But if you could make him aware, and it's annoying that you would have to do this, but with some players you do, make him aware of how important he could be. Just basically say to him, you're not going to do it, but say to him, we're going to build our team around you. You're the conductor of the orchestra. And if you can help lead us to a Scudetto for the first time in more than a decade, you could walk on water in that city. But right now, he either doesn't believe that, he doesn't feel like he's part of the fabric of that football club yet, but I'm not giving up hope on Christian Eriksen. I've seen too many good performances from him in the hope that going forward, he still has something, but he's got to be managed the right way.
For sure. Couldn't agree with you more on that. Which is why I think it's when you said you got to use kid gloves, and then then you look at the bench and it's Antonio Conte.
Yeah,
yeah. It's when it comes to treating people with kid gloves. I mean, I'd say he's the last person capable of doing that. He's more like a bull in a china shop. Will, did you have a question for Mark?
Yes. Hi, Mark. Thanks for joining us. That's actually a nice segue onto my question, because I was going to ask about Antonio Conte. I think there's kind of an unspoken understanding between most Inter fans. This at least feels like it's going to be Conte's final season, perhaps because of the rift that there was towards the end of last season and the likelihood that he was going to leave then. I just wondered if you had any, if you saw any possibility of something beyond this season for Conte, or if you would agree with that sentiment. And also, what did you think of his first year in charge? Because I think we were mostly positive about that on this pod.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, when you look at the table, Juve winning it by a point, it wasn't as close as that, because Juve down tools once the title was won. But I think Juventus's biggest strength after the restart was their opponent's weaknesses. Going into the Lazio game against Juventus, Lazio had dropped 14 points. This isn't the one that's just taken place. This is the one that took place in mid-July. They dropped 14 points. Inter dropped some stupid points as well. Now, as did Juventus. I get that. But I think on the whole, if you'd offered Inter fans, forget how close it was and Juventus had maybe chucked a few points away at the end after they'd won the title. If you'd said, look, you'll be in this title race right up until the last few games of the season, you'll end up 1 point behind, I think Inter fans would have signed up for that. But they would have then thought, you know what, we need to push on from that. I see an element of Jose Mourinho about Antonio Conte in that he doesn't stick around for more than 2 or 3 years. When you look at what he's done, once he kind of got success with Juve, 3 years there, 2 years with Italy, a couple of years with Chelsea, and now you're talking about maybe his second year being his last year with Inter. This is a problem that we have, not just in football, but in life. There's no patience among anybody, not among football fans and among people in life as well. What you want is someone who you're going to have stick around for a while, a project. I remember, and here's the Scottish reference into an Antonio Conte reference, but I can manage it. I can manage it in a Sassuolo Chievo game on ESPN, so I'm sure I can manage it on an Inter perspective as well. When Scotland beat France in the World Cup qualifiers in 1989, it knocked France out. They didn't play in Italy in 1990. So the French got Gérard Houllier and a couple of others, and they decided, okay, we're going to build for the World Cup in 1998, which we're hosting, which I think at the time they already knew that they were hosting, but it was like an 9-year plan. That's for international football. And they put it in place and they ended up winning it. Now, just because you put a plan in place doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Could you do that with a domestic side? No, you couldn't, because fans want success yesterday, or they want it now. They don't want it tomorrow. They're not really prepared to wait. So the difficulty is when you've got a team like Juventus that have won 9 in a row, you've got a team like Inter that haven't won it since 2010, Milan haven't won it since 2011. There is that immediacy requirement among fans. So is he a bit of a lame duck right now? Is Antonio Conte this season the Donald Trump until January the 20th? Is he someone who knows that he ain't going to be around after that? Although I don't think Antonio Conte is preparing to take legal action. But is he someone who has got plans in place for next year if he's not going to be there? And if he's not, then why is he back? You've got to put something in place here. And I think he should still be here. And I think if he had any semblance of nous or achievement or wanting to do something here, he's had his row. He's still there. He wants to achieve. He's going to get a better job if he does leave, if he's successful at Inter, than if he's a failure in this second year. Just because he did well at Juve and he had that spell at Italy and he did okay at Chelsea, you've still got to keep going. I mean, that's the issue that he's got. He's got to be successful this season to get an even better job. If he's not, I think the incentive is there for him to do well. But can you have that 5-year plan? Hakimi's a really good signing. I like him. But others as well. Christian Eriksen in 5 years will be 33. But do you have the patience of supporters that are prepared to wait a couple of years, given they've already waited a decade for some success? I don't know.
That's a good point. I like what you said about him not taking legal action. He kind of did with Chelsea.
Well,
he dragged them to court.
Indeed.
No, but I know what you mean, and I think it's funny because I for me he's always been I always refer to him as Lecce Trump, because I think he's got this this kind of grandeur about him, where it's never his fault, it's always someone else's fault, and and when it goes well, it's thanks to him, and when it goes to hell, it's someone else's fault. It's because he didn't have Arturo Vidal, he only had Stefano Sensi and Nicolo Barella.
You knew what you were getting, though,
yeah,
exactly. When you signed him, it's not like he's changed.
Well, that's what
you bought the package.
Yeah, exactly, and this is why I was against him coming. It was that, and also because he's an unstable person. Inter are an unstable club. At Juve, you have mitigating factors. It's the 3-man defense, which I didn't think Diego Godin and Milan Skriniar were suitable to, and a couple of other things. But Mo's been the balance on this podcast to my skepticism, if we put it that way. Before we let you go, I just wanted to let you. Who do you think will win the Scudetto? We kind of touched on already. If you just give us your places 1 to 6.
Oof. Wow.
It is difficult this season. It is.
It is. And it's not a normal season.
No.
And I would love to pick someone other than Juve. Not that I've got anything against Juventus. I don't have a horse or a dog in the race. I think there's something to be said for whether it's in horse racing, horses for courses. If you've been over the ground and you know how to get it done, that is a huge thing. And none of the players that are playing in this were with other clubs and tasted success, apart from Zlatan was there at the time, but there are very few players that have tasted success out with Juventus. So I think it would be folly not to pick them. They are the favourites, and I think they deserve to be so, given what they've done and their ability to find a way. Although conceding very late on to Caicedo against Lazio yesterday, they haven't. I mean, they've got their 4th draw this season and 3 wins. If this is the season to get at them, then you've got to have a go. And look how tight it is: 17, 15, 14, 14, 13, 13, 12, 12. That's the top 8. Sassuolo will be in the top 6. Right now, the teams not in the top 6 that I think will be, I think there are 2. I think Inter and I think Lazio. I think Lazio get in the top 6, but not into the Champions League. I think Inter get into the Champions League spots, but don't win the titles. So I would go. I don't think Milan will stay up there. I think I'd be surprised if Milan can maintain that challenge, I think it'll be great from the league's perspective with Zlatan and the narrative and everything like that. But I wouldn't have them as league winners. So I'd go Juve, Inter, Milan.
Napoli, Napoli.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
it. I mean,
it's difficult.
It's hard. I think it's close. I mean, I'd have Juve, Inter. I'm probably just going against what I've just said. The four from last season, I don't think will be far away from being the four from this season. Napoli have got a really good win in them, and then they'll go and chuck a dafty in. I remember they won 1-0 at Juventus. Koulibaly's header late on. That was when they were going for the title. Then the next game they lost. I think it was 3-0 at Fiorentina, in 2 games' time. That's the kind of thing you get with Napoli, and they're great to watch. It's just a shame. I think the San Paolo not being full is a thing that'll go against them.
For sure.
So Juve, Inter, Milan, and I don't know. I think one of the Roman clubs. Sassuolo in the top 6 and Atalanta in the top 6 as well.
Okay, so Napoli outside the top 6. That's
someone's going to miss out. It's like the top 4.
For sure.
It's like the top 4. I mean, Atalanta. I commentated with Matteo in their game against Sampdoria. I love Atalanta. Just watching them, the 3-4-2-1 or the 3-4-1-2. But I know they chucked a couple of silly results in last season, but they were mainly at home against teams that were expected to win. And for some reason, they didn't. Sampdoria, but there's the joy of Serie A this season. I mean, you've got Sampdoria going to Atalanta and winning by 3-1, and then losing 2-0 at Cagliari on Saturday. So I think that tells you I'm covering my back with my prediction, which I made kind of rather vaguely, and covered all bases, so that when you come back to me in 9 months' time and go, what about that one you said? I said quite a lot.
The art of a good prediction is to keep it vague, because then you're free of culpability.
So who do you think? I mean, the Coppa Italia and the Supercoppa and the Capocannoniere. If you just quickly give us those.
Ronaldo, I think, will be in a battle with Ibrahimovic, and they'll turn back time. I think those two will battle for the Capocannoniere. I think the Coppa is an interesting one, because people forget there's some really big teams in Italy that haven't tasted success in the Cup for quite a number of years. So I'm going to go either Atalanta or Sassuolo. I'm going to go Sassuolo for the Coppa.
Nice
to
one.
Upset, because you worry as well about teams that are playing in Europe. If they're playing Thursday night and they've got Coppa, or they're playing Wednesday night in Champions League, I think
Sassuolo
will be an outside pick, and I think they would deserve that. And that might be a title, a cup that takes Roberto Di Zerbi to the next level, because right now, I mean, they're great to watch. They're fun. It's not your grandfather's calcio anymore, is it?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Thank you very much for coming on, Mark. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, and if you got something coming out that you want to plug, then the floor is yours.
At Donaldson ESPN on Twitter. A couple of weeks break from Serie A, so I've got Northern Ireland against Slovakia coming up on Thursday for a
Milan Skriniar.
Indeed. And also at the same time, and it'll be on a small monitor in the studio, a certain Serbia featuring Alex Kolarov, if he's fit, against Scotland. So a place at the Euros and a place in England's group. So it's going to be either England-Scotland or England-Serbia at the Euros next year. And then I've got a couple of Spain games and Germany games next week as well before we return. I can, if you want, I can give you a wee exclusive as to our upcoming games on ESPN. Let's see if any involve Inter. Obviously, all the matches are on ESPN Plus. We do have on December the 16th, Inter against Napoli will be on ESPN 2. Our coverage is 15 minutes before kickoff. This is for those of you in the United States, of course, and if you're watching in Canada, I'm sure you'll be able to find a way to watch that as well. We actually have 3 live games on ESPN. Hellas Verona against Inter is the final game before the shutdown for a couple of weeks. That's on December 23rd. And our first game back on ESPN2 is Inter against Crotone at 6:25 in the morning. So we've got a lot of Inter to come. So then I should be a little bit more informed the next time you speak to me after I've done plenty Inter games on ESPN. But thank you for having me.
Mark, one last question before you go. You mentioned England and Scotland potentially being in the same group at Euro. Have they played each other in a competitive fixture, not in qualifying tournament, since I believe it was it Euro 96 or Euro 92 when they played each other? And
it was Euro 96.
Was it Paul Gascoigne had that great goal?
Yeah. He did, but Yuri Geller claims, the spoonbender claims that he was able to move the ball on the spot from the main stand so that Gary McAllister missed the penalty. If you don't accept swearing on this one, you can bleep this out, but that is utter shite from Yuri Geller. It's utter nonsense. We played them in 1999 for a place at the Euro 2000s. Oh my God, the atmosphere at Hampden, I was covering that game, is the loudest I've ever heard. They beat us 2-0 at Hampden. We went down there. I think Don Hutchison scored the goal. Was it Don? I'm sure it was Don. And we won 1-0, but Christian Daly had a chance to tie things up and didn't take it. I just desperate for Scotland to get back to a major tournament, because I can't be working with the guy who scored our last goal at a major tournament, Craig Burley. That won't do. We need a new hero.
Sounds good. Sounds good, and best of luck, and thank you for coming on. And we will definitely have you on after that. After you listen to you update your Inter thing. And thank you so much. At Donaldson ESPN, right?
Yes. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mark Donaldson. Let's move on to let's talk about the Champions League game and also a little bit about the Atalanta game. I honestly think that the Champions League is over now. I mean, the way I see it, it's done. It's Inter battling for third. And I'm not so sure that's a good idea, because I don't think the Europa League is where we want to be. I think maybe, given the situation, the best thing that can happen is maybe to finish fourth and then just focus on the league, because, and this is something that I have nightmares about, Inter missing the top 4 would be the biggest disaster to happen to this club. It's so that in the past 10 years that I don't even want to verbalize it, because it scares me that much. But I personally think it's over. I suspect Mo doesn't agree, so I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mohamed.
Well, I mean, you suspect your suspicions are well founded and well placed. Look, honestly, it was. I think we're going to get out of the group. I think looking at the results, I think we can make second. I think if we get 3 points if we get 9 points from the remaining 3 matches, we're through. So it still is in our hands. So I don't see why not. I think Real Madrid were and are a very beatable side. I think a lot has been learned in that first match, and again, fingers crossed Lukaku's injury isn't compounded over the coming few weeks. We have him back. We've got our defensive trio. May God keep them healthy and fit until the break. I think, like I said, I've said it before, I think we are where we are today as a result of a series of really unfortunate circumstances, a very tough schedule, and I can only think that. Look, here's my closing argument, about positivity. We always seem to have a screw up in January, February. May this be our January, February, and then we have a good turn of the year. It's just. That's honestly, that's how I feel about it. It's just it's been one thing after another. You lose your top striker right after, you lose you lose 7 players due to COVID, and then you lose your striker, and then you lose one of the defenders, and that it's been one thing after another. And now hopefully we can reset in a nice run of games, and all of this can be put behind us. But having watched the Real Madrid game, you were fearing a thrashing. It certainly didn't pan out so, and I don't think it will. And I think we're just going to get better, and hopefully we will be able to take 3 points in the next fixture.
Well, you see, when you say that you hope this is our January, December, I think that's when the fun starts with Conte. See, this is where, because I've been, I've not been positive, and it's not that I've been negative, or it's just that I call it like I see it, and the way, I was angry in the summer because I felt that the moves that needed to be made to prevent this, and also to win the Scudetto, were not made. And to me, what we're seeing now is we're just watching it being played out. And this is, I think, honestly, I don't even want to think about January right now, because that'll make me so clinically depressed. I can't even think about Inter anymore. But I honestly think that the Champions League, I mean, let's put it to you this way. If the Champions League, I'm going to ask you, and Will and Mike, this question, and also you at the end, Mo. First of all, just quickly, do you guys think that, I mean, Mo says he thinks we'll qualify from the group. But quickly, do you guys think we'll qualify from the group? And if we don't, do you prefer a third or a fourth finish? Do you prefer the Europa League, or do you prefer no Europa League, just to focus on the league? I'll start with you, Mike.
Well, look, Mo said, we can get 9 points from the next 3 games and qualify. I don't even think we need 9 points. I think 6 or 7 could get us into the next round, which I think is very possible. So I would possibly look at our chances right now and say we're pretty much 50-50. Yes, we underperformed in the games against Shakhtar and Gladbach, and we had a great second half against Real Madrid. It wasn't for some stupid defensive error at the back, then we would have 3 points right now, and it would be a logjam in the group. It already is. It still is a logjam, but look, if we get 6 points against Gladbach and Shakhtar, there's a possibility that we might not even need a result against Real Madrid, depending on what happens in the other games. This is going to be one of those groups where potentially 8 points, 9 points can get you out of the group. It doesn't happen often, but when you get so many draws, like there has been in this group, you're going to get a low point total advancing to the next round. And that looks like it's going to happen because there's going to be lost points from every team going forward. I just don't think that it's like we need to win every game to make it. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a possibility that we get 6 points and we can still get through, or hey, you beat Shakhtar, you beat Gladbach, and potentially get a draw against Real. That I think 7 points would be good enough to get to the next round. Going to the next part, would I want third place or fourth place? I don't think we're there yet. I don't know. If you look at what happened last year, and we made the Europa League final, if you would have told me that would be the case, and you would have asked me, during December, what would I rather have, third or fourth place? But that third place would turn into a Europa League final. I would take that Europa League final and take third place. Do you know what I mean? Mm. So I know that it kind of hampers the Scudetto chances a little bit, which it ended up probably doing. But I don't think we're there yet. Let's wait until we get to match day 5 and see how these next 2 games go. I think we still got a 50-50 chance, potentially even better, to make the round of 16.
What about you, Will? Do you think we'll make it? And if we don't make it, do you prefer third or fourth?
Well, one of those questions is a lot easier than the other one, I think. Do I think we'll make it? No. I would give us a lower chance than 50%. I'd put it at around 20-25%.
Yeah, that's where I am as well.
Look, it's possible. I don't think we are out, but I would be surprised at this point if we made it through. I think 9 points would definitely get us through. 7 points would possibly get us through. I don't think 6 would get us through. I mean, I'm sure it's mathematically possible. I haven't gone through all the permutations in my head or with a piece of paper, but I think at that point we're really relying on basically every other match being a draw or something. Basically every other result. The other 3 results on each match day left would have to go for us. And so far, pretty much all the other games have gone against us. They're pretty much so. Shakhtar beating Real on the first match day wasn't good. Gladbach winning 6-0 wasn't great on match day 3. So I'm working on the assumption that we need at least 7 points to get through, and I don't think at the moment that is the most likely scenario. It's not over, but I think if you don't beat Real Madrid in match day 4, that puts you in a very difficult position, just emotionally, not as much as much as mathematically, because at that point you've not won a game out of 4, and suddenly you need to win 2 to get through. So that would be difficult. As far as 3rd and 4th is concerned, I'm very conflicted. Obviously, if there's look, in practical terms, what this means is, you're almost saying, would it be better to, kind of cast the Champions League to one side if it's clear that we can't go through? I don't really ever like that idea, because, we are short of wins at the moment. So I think we just need to win whatever match is put in front of us at the moment. So I don't think that it's really a calculation that Inter can make. If we're talking hypothetically about what would be better, then that's maybe a different question. I suppose for the league title, given how packed the schedule is, it probably would be better to go for, not to go for 4th, but to somehow unfortunately end up 4th and get out of Europe, because as you've seen over the last few weeks, our squad has been stretched. If you aren't traveling in Europe, then you're not flying around. That means less chance, obviously, of catching COVID if you're heading to other countries. So that's also another factor for this season. Let's remember that last year we made the Europa League final, but it wasn't a Europa League final that was reached with matches played throughout the season. It was a mini tournament in August. That's not going to be the case, we don't think, this year. So that it would be very different. I don't think, had the matches been played when they should have been last season, that we would reach the final. That's my opinion. Maybe you disagree. But I don't like the idea of, we're chasing a trophy. So I don't really mind, I'd be happy to win the Copa. I'd be happy to win the Europa League. We're not going to win the Champions League, even if we make out the group. We could, in theory, win the Europa League if we've sorted ourselves out by then. So I don't like the idea of saying it's a good thing. I think that's that seems to be what a lot of Italian sides do. And I don't think it actually ever works that well. I don't think there's much history of sort of bidding off Europe as a good idea. Obviously, Lazio came close last year, and we'll never know how that came up. But we're not Lazio, we're Inter. We're supposed to be chasing trophies. So if you want me to put my head on the block now, I would say no. I would want to stay in the Europa League. But I can see that there are arguments for both sides.
What about you, Mo? Do you prefer, like, if you 3rd or 4th, if a gig qualifier from the Champions League group was out, which one do you think would be better for Inter, and which one do you choose?
I think the way Will put it was very was perfect. I think we're short on wins, and we need to look at things one match at a time, and we need to try and win every match that we can. And if that means finishing 3rd place, then we'll decide what to do with the Europa League then. It'll be a strategic decision taken by the board and Conte on how to treat the Europa League. But certainly, I think we should definitely aim for finishing in the highest possible and the best possible manner in the group. And if that takes us to 3rd place, so be it,
For sure. Right. We did also play against Atalanta, and Atalanta, who have also struggled a little bit this season, especially after being thumped by Napoli completely. And they've struggled a little bit after that, as well as Mark said, against Sampdoria. And this was a game where, I felt the draw maybe was the most fair result. But I think the thing that got me the most is I saw 2 teams where one had a clear ideology and a clear pathway of how to play in defense and in attack in Atalanta, in that their attack is to overload their defense is to overload their attack. And an Inter who, after 16 months, they're still looking for an identity. Who, with a lot of tinkering with Barella, is he going to be a different trequartista, or is it a 3-5-2, which he played in the second half? And above all, something that has been bothering me a lot, and this is the fact that by a simple, it wasn't even an extraordinary pass that Luis Muriel did to before the goal to Miranchuk, but with a simple pass down the middle, Inter were gone. Inter's press were gone, and the defenders were left exposed. And I know we can blame Handanovic a lot, and we should, because I personally think that he's past it, and we, to be honest, he peaked 2 seasons ago when he was named the best Serie A goalkeeper, best goalkeeper in the Serie A. That was his peak. After that, it's been a slow, steady decline. So I'm not one of those who buy this stuff about him moving and all that. I think that's ridiculous. A professional goalkeeper, of course, he wants to save the ball. It's not that he doesn't want to save the ball and he just stands looking at it. I don't buy that. I know, Mo, that's not your criticism of him, but I've always disagreed with you on that. I do, however, think that this is an issue. That he has peaked, and that we saw his peak 2 seasons ago, and I think it's been a slow, steady decline since then. But having that, be that as it may, there is a structural issue here between the balance that I keep on bringing up on this podcast, and that is that every single chance that Inter concede from, why do we concede 50% of the shots on goal? Well, because all of the attacks come from the middle, and that's where you don't want, as a defending team, to concede chances. Inter continuously concede down the middle, and as Mark said, they shouldn't be, because they have the players not to. So that suggests to me that there is a structural issue, and one that Conte, after 16 months, has not yet been able to figure out. And I think more than anything, he knows this, which is why he's so incredibly touchy and so annoyed, because his solution to that was to overload and play with 2 strikers and overload the wings and have them score more, which he was talking about earlier on, about, well, if they score 3, we score 4 and all that nonsense. So this suggests to me that he's doubting himself, and when a coach does that at Inter, that's the beginning of the end. And I think we saw that again against Atalanta, although I don't think that the result itself is a bad thing. Atalanta can defeat anyone at home, and they are very good. They're one of the best sides in Europe. We all know that. But to me, the structural issues and the insecurities that we see, and that he's the source of now, that to me worries me going into the classic January or December depression. I want to hear your thoughts and reaction on that, Mo.
We've gone on about it. There's clearly a problem in defense. I think it's compounded, like you rightly said, by the fact that that Handanovic is far beyond, his best years, and even then he was not a goalkeeper who was free of any criticism. So he's become a bit of a liability, not in the sense that he's error prone, but he's. We still consider him a great shot stopper, and he clearly isn't. So he's not giving the defense the sort of safety or the assuredness at the back. I don't know what it is about the center of the goals conceded centrally. I don't know what it is about that through pass, about that silly pass, about it's the same way it used to happen last season over and over again, with wingers running behind either Godin or Skriniar on the right flank, and finding that extra bit of space, and then the cutback and nobody picking up the midfield runner. We conceded so many of those goals. This season it seems to be that that final third, there's a void there missing, and I suspect it's got to do with a combination between Brozovic's laziness and Vidal's older legs, and of course Barella being played up further up, so he's not as mobile in that bit, picking up runners from the back. So I think it is in fact a bit something to do with balance. Marotta said that he realizes that Inter are not as solid defensively as last season, and Conte is working on it. So all I can do is just continue trusting the process, and look, it was a much more confident display at the back than we've had in a while, and I don't think it's a coincidence, because we have our preferred back three available for selection. So again, silver linings, and like you said, the result in and of itself is a good result, is a decent result.
For sure, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so I'll take what I can get at this point in time. I really would have loved 3 points. I really thought, like when Lautaro scored, I thought, you know what, this is it. We're gonna, we're shutting them out. Yeah, we're gonna do it. It's a 1 or 2-0, and we're gonna get that clean sheet. but it wasn't meant to be, and it was that same ridiculous goal. So yeah, I just hope that I know that they realize that there's a problem there, and I hope that the solution is available for a quick remedy.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, as well, Mike and Will. So I'm going to start with you, Mike. I mean, I see a structural issue, and I've seen it, like I told Mark earlier in this podcast, and I've been saying it on and on through the season. I think it's safe to say that there is a structural issue, disregarding the first few games with Sensi, Brozovic, and Barella under Conte. This has been a recurring theme. I think that's where the issue is: the issue of balance, and that Inter concede too much centrally. I want to pick your brain on that.
Well, I just want to see a consistent lineup on this team. I know injuries are always going to happen, and there's going to have your COVID issues, and I just want to see a team that we know who our 11 starters are going in, and if you got to make changes about injuries and whatever, I want to know that identity. I don't want to have interchanging lineups, not because of rest, but because of whatever he's trying to do. I want to see a consistent lineup. When I go in, I know that this player is going to be playing because that's who's been, they need to be having consistent play in the team to build chemistry. And I think when you're rotating guys, when you're having Eriksen play and then the next day he's rested, doesn't play a minute, and then I think that chemistry is important when these guys play with each other. They need to understand each other better. And when you don't have that consistency, when we're having rotating of 19 guys that we've probably played already this year at some point and started, to me that's an issue, and I want to see consistency. I
agree with that because
go ahead.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think for me, it's not just it's what I interpret that you're alluding to is not just a rotation. It's the fact that he doesn't seem to have a clear red thread of what he wants to do. It's like you just play different players, but you also play different formations and different ways to attack, and that's where that's what bothers me a lot as well. And that scares me because that means that's just, to me, he's questioning and doubting himself. And usually when that happens, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all.
Yeah, it's okay to change things up, but because it depends on the team you're playing and what type of formation they're playing and what type of players they're using and stuff. That's okay, but we're not having any consistency with the chemistry of the lineup. These players need to get used to playing with each other on a consistent basis, not once every 2 weeks, or you need to have that these guys know where they're going to be playing and just get used to this consistency of just understanding what kind of players they are, not just in practice but during the game, and that game experience is totally different. I think someone mentioned about the defense. There was something I wanted to mention about the last couple games, and I love Bastoni. I think he's going to be a great player. I just think that he was at fault in 2 of the goals of the last 2 games, and I thought in the Real Madrid game it was him and Ashley Young on the game winner, where they both went towards one striker and they left Rodrigo wide open. When that kind of brings me to having the chemistry and having that consistency, playing with each other over and over again. They both didn't kind of know who's responsible for which player, and they both went to one player, leaving the other one wide open, and sure enough, that's where the ball went, and he scored the winning goal. And then you had the game against Atalanta. You had a beautiful ball by Muriel that went in there, but at the same time, Bastoni just kind of got roasted in front of him, and he didn't. I don't think he pressured him as good as he should have. And I don't think it was that bad of a shot. And I'm not saying it's Handanovic's fault. I think it was a very tricky shot to make a save on. I just thought Bastoni should have been better, and he should have pressured him a little bit better and not allowed him to get that shot off. So look, Bastoni's great. He's going to be a great player for us, and I just don't think that maybe he was 100% ready to take on the starting role yet. But he's going to be there soon.
Will, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I've been thinking quite a bit, and I know it sounds like some sort of a Mazzari Frankenstein monster nightmare, but I honestly think that the only way to get Eriksen into this and to maybe block the hemorrhaging down the middle is the 3-5-1-1 with Eriksen behind Lukaku. I honestly think that's the only way to get Eriksen into this team, and maybe even to find the balance, because against Atalanta, like Mo said, we were solid defensively, but we were completely lacking offensively. The other extreme of that is when Inter are offensively, when they attack like aggressively, they're hollow defensively. And I think maybe the 3-5-1-1 whenever Lukaku's fit, or the 3-5-2 with Lautaro and Lukaku together. But one of I don't know. What's your thoughts? What do you think?
Well, I think the problem of not having much offensive bite against Atalanta was accentuated by Lukaku not being there, because you could see that while Inter was solid defensively, the ball just doesn't stick in the same way as it does with Lukaku, as it was doing with Lautaro and with Sanchez. There were a couple of moments in the first half where Sanchez did get his back to goal and managed to spread the play and helped us get up the pitch, but it's not something he does as naturally as Lukaku. We heard that comment from Matthias Ginter, the Borussia Mönchengladbach defender, after we drew against them in the Champions League, and he was saying, basically Inter just send the ball to Lukaku and see what happens. Now, he got obviously a bit of stick because fans don't like hearing that kind of criticism about their club, but whether or not you agree with the tone, that it's clear that without Lukaku, the team is a completely different proposition going forward, and it's generally a weaker one. I think that maybe, I've never coached, I've never written a thesis on tactics or anything, but one of my ideas, I was just thinking there as you were talking, was one way of the two options that would seem most obvious to me in terms of mitigating that problem in front of the back four, which I think we can all agree exists, is maybe to sit deeper and just block off that space so that nobody can play through you. Of course, the problem then is that you have to have an effective way of going forward, and if you don't have Lukaku, that's pretty much impossible. The other option is to pack the midfield with another body, and with Eriksen you would do that, wouldn't you? Because you'd essentially have four midfielders in that middle space. So it's possible, but I think what we're getting around here is the fact that at the moment we don't have the personnel to do what Conte would ideally want to do, both because we couldn't sign a defensive midfielder in the summer, which we know was a target for him, and because I think certain players are out of condition physically, or at least they're not at their best. And that's really the big thing that I took away from the last few games, is that Brozovic is either lazy or he's not actually properly fit yet, or maybe both. We know Nainggolan is not properly fit. We all saw that for ourselves when he came on the other week. Vidal is not capable of playing 90 minutes 3 times a week. Sensi is not there. Vecino is not there. Barella is great, but he can't do it on his own. And Eriksen has got some kind of we've got the confusion that we were talking about before. Obviously, Gagliardini, which was back, and this sounds bad, but that's probably a good thing, given that he was out for. I think that might have helped, if nothing else, to give players a rest in the last few weeks. So there's clearly a problem that this is clearly the biggest headache in terms of selection, because the rest of the team pretty much picks itself: the back three, the front two, and the wing backs. It's this midfield triangle or line of three that's causing problems. So until we have everyone firing on all cylinders, at least physically, it's up to Conte to find a different route out of this problem. As we were banging on about last week with Nerazzurri, he's paid quite a lot of money. So if and as Mark said earlier, it doesn't suit Conte, even if you're convinced that he's looking ahead. It doesn't suit him to sacrifice this year, because if one win in 8 games is not going to be very attractive to Paris Saint-Germain. It doesn't matter if he's looking calmer. If the results are crap, it doesn't matter. They're not going to hire him anyway. So it's up to him to make sure that he gets his head down and finds a starting three that works, or a different formation. Because it's clear that at the moment we're conceding very similar goals. And I would add to the Atalanta game the third goal against Real Madrid, because while Mike was concerned about Bastoni, the image that I took away from that goal was Vidal trotting behind Rodrigo, seemingly without any intention to close him down.
Yeah,
he looked like he was probably should have been taken off before that, because he'd run out of gas. And that was the thing that annoyed me most about that goal. The fact that he just sort of accompanied him into the penalty area and watched him score.
So basically, he's Borja Valero with a mohawk, because that's the issue we had last season, isn't it? But it annoys me
with a bit more grit. Yeah.
Well, yes, but that's just it. I mean, this is again. I mean, Kolarov and Vidal. This is the way I see this is a perfect storm, because it's like the players that are supposed to lead are either out of form, De Vrij, are either injured, Lukaku, are either working their way to form, like Lautaro, or way past their bests, like Handanovic, Vidal, and Kolarov. And then on top of that, you have the Inter factor with Inter constantly being under pressure, and the added thing that Conte, by demanding these players, has just completely removed all alibis of saying that this is a young team, we're building for the future. This is a team age-wise that's built that has to win now, and it doesn't look anywhere close to winning right now. Sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say the other thing that I was going to bring that up anyway, about how Conte's comments after particularly the Real Madrid match about how this is a process, we need to grow, etc. is all rubbish. That's fine if you bought Kumbula and Tonali, but you didn't can them for the older players. So that is rubbish, basically.
Complete rubbish. No, it is right. It's nonsense. And then when he talks about Klopp, and Klopp didn't win anything for 4 years, that's just like, what are you talking about? Klopp did not buy 34-year-olds.
But the other problem that I've seen in definitely in the Atalanta game and in most games so far this season is that we talked about before, not taking the chances. If you've got these problems, they're not such problems if you take your chances. If Vidal scores that goal with 25 minutes left against Atalanta, it's 2-0. The game probably ends differently. If we take our chance in the first half against any of these games recently, I was trying to think of a particular game, but maybe if we'd scored early against Parma when we had opportunities, if you take one of the chances at 2-2 against Real Madrid, then things go differently. And it all points towards a team which, to me, at the moment, seems quite flat. And it's tempting, to make the comparison, to look at the touchline and see the man who isn't screaming and shouting like he once was. I after the Real Madrid game, I expected a little bit more anger in that performance yesterday. You've won 1 in 7. If you'd had that game yesterday after a couple of wins and you were in good form, I think that's fine. Atalanta are a great team. You don't have to beat them away from home to win the league. But there's no kind of reaction at the moment, and that's what concerns me. And we know that Conte has been advised to calm down in public, but I hope that that's just in public, because it seems that either he's not trying to fire his players up like he used to, or the players aren't quite getting the message anymore, because there wasn't much in that first half yesterday, or indeed after the conceding the equaliser. There was only going to be one winner after Atalanta equalised yesterday. So I'm waiting for some kind of some kind of gear change. At the moment, we're just kind of going through the motions.
Exactly, and that's what I was kind of alluding to when I said I think this is the beginning of the end, because not that he doesn't care. I think he definitely cares, but I think he's confused, and I think that he's searching, and after 16 months, you don't want to be searching.
One more thing, by the way, I just noticed before we started recording, our record in all competitions so far this season is 1-3, drawn 5, lost 2, 3-5-2. Maybe that's the answer for Conte.
Oh, Jesus. Right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the negativity. This week's Moggi, which is presented by Mr. Michael Gallo.
All right, so since this is negativity in the world of football, I'm going to extend the world of football to a different type of football, but still football. In America, we have a sport called American football, so it will be on the same guidelines of this. We had a college football game between University of Clemson, which is the #1 ranked team in America, taking on Notre Dame, the #4 team in America. Obviously, there's something going on in this world right now called a pandemic, and we have obviously a big problem going on. Well, for some reason, in the state of Indiana and other states around the United States, they decided to let fans into the game. Not only some fans, but they let over 10,000 fans
Oh my
into this football game.
God. Jesus.
And this has been going on for a few weeks where some states are letting in fans, and it's gotten out of control, obviously, because Americans just don't really care about COVID right now. And of course, what happened was the game ended up being the best game of the year. The #1 team was upset by Notre Dame. And what do you think the fans did? They all rushed the field, and you had 10,000 fans all over the field, all over the players, all over the coaches. The entire field was just congested with 10,000 people all together as one. Hardly anyone wearing a mask. And sure enough, like, this is Indiana. We're not talking about like a state that takes it seriously. This is Indiana, which is a Republican state, which obviously the Republicans don't really care about COVID. It's Mike Pence's state. So if anyone who follows politics, it's his state. And you got just a massive issue with all these fans. You got to look at the pictures of this. It's embarrassing, of just the entire field, just full of 10,000 people all together, like all over the players, coaches, and it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? They're just, because they upset the #1 team, they decided to rush the field and storm the pitch, and it's just a total disaster. And then you got like LeBron James, the basketball player. He put out a tweet saying, "We're not allowed fans at our NBA games, but NCAA college football," and he tweets a picture of the field. It's just full of people with no restrictions at all, and you can't really stop it from happening if you're letting the fans in, because you don't have the appropriate number of people to, like, stewards, to stop it from happening. If you got 10,000 fans rushing the field, you don't have 10,000 stewards.
No.
And the funniest thing about this was that the president of the school today sent a memo out to all the fans who ran the field, and he's also a priest. He also said, he's like, anyone who was caught on video, you're going to be reprimanded for what you did on Saturday. So just a total mess of what happened on Saturday, and I think people should know better. And this is hopefully the first of only one incident like this, and hopefully it doesn't happen again.
For sure. Jesus, I had no idea. That's horrible. Right. Let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti, which is presented by Mr. Mohamed. Nassar.
He works a lot. He's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person all these qualities.
I'll keep it nice and short and simple. It was really nice having Milan Skriniar back. Having a strong defensive trio. Yeah,
I have missed him so much.
Yeah, he's been missed. A strong defensive trio has been missed. So that for me is my Moratti of the week.
Yeah, I thought he did really well, given that he hasn't trained or played for 3 weeks. I think I agree with you. I thought he looked really good. I mean, he was only cut out once. I mean, we know he struggles with vertical movement, but he was only caught out once, and he recovered pretty quickly for that. So that's the Skriniar I want to see. Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. William Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Yeah, I think we're in quintessential Frog territory this week. I resisted the urge to give it to the 60,000 Americans who voted for Kanye West to become president in January, but I'll gloss over that perhaps. No, this is about making an unnecessary fool of yourself in a critical moment. So I'm giving it to Ademola Lookman, who plays for Fulham. right at the bottom of the Premier League. He had an opportunity to give his team a much-needed morale boost on Saturday evening. Fulham had just conceded in stoppage time to West Ham to go 1-0 down after a very hard-fought match. All looked lost, but towards the end of the game, they got desperate towards the end. The keeper went up, and in the confusion, they managed to win a penalty to equalise. But instead of tucking it away, he committed the cardinal sin of missing a Panenka, and there's no more.
That is frog.
There's no more kind of cringeworthy sight, I suppose, in football than that. Because if you take that kind of penalty, you have to score. Otherwise, you look like
an idiot. You do look
and
like
it really was bad. It hardly reached the goal. You know, it wasn't even a good Panenka. You know, it was. You could tell he wasn't entirely.
It wasn't Pirlo against England. It wasn't Pirlo against England.
No, it was more. There's a penalty that Gary Lineker missed 30 years ago, where he was trying to equal the record to become England's all-time leading goal scorer, and he came up with this awful sort of mini chip that trickled into the goalkeeper's midriff. It was pretty similar to that this weekend. So yeah, not the most sort of famous footballer of modern era, but it was very embarrassing, and it wasn't a Premier League match, and it was for a point they kind of really badly needed. So, and he got called out by his own manager after the game for being a bit of an idiot. So, if you miss a Panenka in a crucial moment and you take it as badly as that, then you're writing yourself into the frog book.
You're not allowed to do Panenkas unless your name is Andrea Pirlo or Francesco Totti. Like, that's the level. Like, seriously, like, it's just, I mean. Anyway, that's thank you. I want to thank Mark Donaldson. I want to thank you, Mike. Don't be a stranger. Come back soon.
Well, hey, listen, I've been trying to burn through my vacation at the end of the year, so I'm trying to see the country that I grew up in, and I haven't done that, so that's where I've been the last few weeks. But
yes, you have. I've been very jealous. I mean, that photo you put up, were you in heaven? I mean, the rest of the planet was burning up, and you were literally in heaven. Some sort of like the waterfalls, and it was like I was so jealous.
If you're easily prone to jealousy, then don't follow Mike on Instagram.
No,
I was trying to see God's view of how bad Inter was from up top.
It was the most beautiful view I have ever seen. Like, it was unbelievable. And this was just via your phone. I can't even imagine how it looked like when you were there. Like, Jesus.
Different world in Western Canada, that's for sure.
Beautiful country, Canada, for sure. So don't be a stranger. Make sure to come back. And thank you, Mr. William Beckman.
Thank you. The good news, guys, is that we will not lose a match this week because it is an international break.
That's a Mo level of positivity, but with a little bit of will dry humor. I love it. And Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. And that first Real Madrid goal was a foul that wasn't called by the referee or VAR. So,
Come on.
I forgot to say that.
Okay.
Keeney forgot what shirt he was wearing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Forgot he'd left Real Madrid. I'd like to thank Mark Donaldson as well. I'd like to thank all of you and as you listen and everyone listening. This week is an international break, so whoever you support internationally, I hope you have 3 to 6 points, depending on how many games you play. I'm your host, Nima Tavallaey, wishing you a good weekend, health, stay safe, and sempre e solo forza Inter.